Hey, what's up guys? Senpai Grayson here, back with an Amara build. This build has been fantastic. I'm calling it the Action Cannon. I don't know, maybe Action Tank, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter what it's named. The thing is amazing. You get to spam your action skill non-stop, granting you buffs, granting you healing, granting you tankiness, granting you healing more in terms of health regen based off your max health. You just get everything for using this build. It's insane. It's great. I handle normal mode Mayhem 3 just fine, and I'm sure I would handle True Vault Hunter mode Mayhem 3 as well just fine. But let's just dig into it. This thing's crazy. As with every review, I'm always going to give a rating before we jump into the build. I'm going to give this 5 stars for damage because as long as you're using the right element type, it's going to destroy them. 5 stars for defense because when you use your action ability, you get damage reduction. You also get about 35% of your health regened per second, which is insane. It's so hard to kill you. And on top of that, you're going to get delay on shield regen. You're going to get that negative 200 and I don't know, 50-ish percent. It's pretty crazy. So defense, 5 stars. Utility. It's also getting a 5 in utility. Reason being is because you're consistently able to use your action ability, which a lot of times will stagger the opponents, and you also can switch to the Nova Ground Slam that shoots everything in a line and will knock up your opponents. All around, utility is amazing, and on top of that, when you get hit, you move faster. So you just overall, you're mobile, you're CCing, it's great. 5 stars versus mobs. Well, I'm able to do Slaughter Shaft with ease on Mayhem 3, so I'm gonna go ahead and just say that's just as capped out. If I can go to 6 stars, I would do that. This thing absolutely destroys. All right, and lastly, and it's possibly the only weakness, and it's bosses. So bosses, I'm gonna say about a 4 stars. It still does a ton of damage, because you can consistently proc maximum benefits from the buffs that you get. However, I'm sure there's better builds out there for either other characters or even Amara. So it has to have some sort of downfall, but it still does an amazing job. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what actually makes this build tick. Alright, so starting off with the Mystical Assault tree, this is going to be our main focus. We are looking to buff anything that gives damage on action skill. So for our ability, our action skill, we can either use Phase Cast or we can use the Ground Slam. That's totally fine. Use whatever you want from each tree. I have my preferences and I'll let you know about that. Starting with Do Harm. Killing an enemy grants Amara a stack of rush, which is going to be super important. Every time you use your action skill, it's going to do increased damage per stack, and we're going to get up to 20 stacks later on, so it's super important that we go with that. Next, Restless. Cooldown rate. You want this to be capped as much as possible. This is going to allow you to use your ability like every 4 seconds. There's almost no downtime to it at all. This is possibly the most important thing about the build. You need to be using the action ability in order to buff ourselves and buff the damage that we do to the enemies. This is what makes us tanky, and we'll see later in the tree why that's possible. Ascendancy. With Ascendant, this gives our action skill augments increased effects, and this is going to be really important for staying alive. You can pick all the different augments in the tree and play around with this if you want, but I go with the lifesteal one, and the extra heal just helps out considerably and keeps me alive longer. We're going to go to Transcend. This is an action skill. After you use your active ability, your action ability, you're going to get increased crit damage. That's just amazing. Accuracy is pretty much nothing. Violent Tapestry, not super important just yet. It allows you to get more stacks, but we're not focusing technically on status effect chance, and status effect damage. Since you'll primarily be using elemental weapons, you're probably going to want to take 1 point into this. I like to take 1 point into this, and I'll show you the other one that I also take 1 point into, just because you get increased effects with stacks. Next up is Laid Bare. Increase damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by Amara's action skill. Now this is awesome. You're going to be laying down that action skill over and over and over again, hitting everybody with it, and this is just raw damage potential, so make sure you max that out. Next up, we've got Wrath. Okay, so this gives you flat gun damage, which is just, you should always have this almost any build you go, but also after you use your action skill, you're going to get a flat damage increase on top of that. Amazing. Max it out. Don't leave home without it. We'll be ignoring the ability all the way to the left. It makes your fire rate and charge rate go faster, but I want to avoid reloading and just hit enemies less times for more damage. Alright, so next we'll be going with Remnant and maxing this out. What this does is if you kill an enemy with your gun or action skill, you'll shoot an orb out of that enemy, and it will go and home in on another enemy, which will then damage them, hopefully taking off their shields. It does a pretty significant amount of damage. Any overkill damage will add to the damage from that orb. So it's pretty amazing. Make sure you max it out. Okay, so we finally hit Avatar, which simply allows us to get increased stacks and use our action skill a second time on cooldown. Now, you might be wondering, well, if you've got maxed out cooldown, you can use your ability every 4 seconds, why do you have this? Well, the bonus rush stacks are the key point of it. But also, if you're in Mayhem 3 and your cooldown takes longer, you're going to want to have that second stack. We will come back to that tree, but for now, we're going to go to the Brawl tree, go to personal space, and put 3 points in this. Just dealing more damage for being closer to the enemies. It is free damage. We're grabbing 2 points into clarity to get down to that next section. This gives you health regen and more health regen whenever you proc your active skill. Alright, another key ability, Samsara. Whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she adds a stack of Samsara. With every stack, Amara gains increased gun damage and health regeneration. Again, making us tankier, making us stronger, and everything being based on that action skill. Put 3 points into this, and at this point in time, you could do really whatever you want with the build. Personally, I like to go with the skill Helping Hands, which is on the right, and I put 5 points into that because it gives you damage reduction on ability use. I ignore Find Your Center because that's melee based, and melees kind of suck, even the whole melee build. Mindfulness is something that I like to take as well. When you get shot, when you take damage, you gain stacks of it. The stacks go up to 25, giving you shield regeneration delay up to like 250+%. It's like maybe even 300%. And then move speed, which is very noticeable when you're trying to escape and you're getting beat on or you're just locked up. At this point, I have 9 points left, and it really doesn't matter where you put these points at, but I like to go for tankiness, Helping Hands. I'm maxing that out. Next, I'm maxing out Clarity, and that's just because it gives me health regen on action skill, and I'm going to be spamming it, which means I'll be gaining 10% max health constantly. I maxed out Awakening because it gives me rush effectiveness, and I've got a lot going into the rush stacks. And I also add 1 point to Alacrity. This gives you faster reload speed, and you're going to be reloading, so you might as well get some sort of bonus from the stacks. That's really it for the skill points. You can see that everything is centered around using your action skill, and it makes you incredibly strong. But what action skill should you pick? I like to go with the augmented Deliverance, which is phase cast with the orbs that trigger on every enemy that's hit, making my action skill just hit more enemies and spread out a little bit more. I always go with the lifesteal for more healing, more tankiness. Honestly, you can't go wrong with it. Every time an enemy is touched, you're going to get healing from it. Now, for Other skills that work, I would say the ground slam will work, or the ground slam that goes in a line. Anything that will allow you to hit more enemies with it is going to be the most powerful. Play around with it, but you want to watch and make sure that you don't make your cooldown too long. Alright, so next part is items, which these are all swappable except for the transformer. The transformer is amazing. What it does is it converts 100% of shock damage into shields. Every single enemy type has some sort of shock damage, and this is crazy. It makes you so tanky because the enemies do so much damage. They do almost all of our life in one hit. It's kind of crazy. So we want to start focusing on damage reduction, action skill cooldown, and whatever we can to get some healing out of things. When it comes to mod, I'm just looking for a mod that gives me Restless and Do Harm. That's the one with the hourglass and the one with the skull. Everything else doesn't really matter. Find the best one for what you're trying to do. Obviously, I'm not even using the unique buff on my mod. For my artifact, what I'm looking for here is just more resistance and also the action skill cooldown rate. It has max shield as well. Everything else does not matter to me. Obviously, I'm not slamming enemies because the slams don't really do anything. Moving on, my grenade, I'm using a transfusion tracker. It's a special grenade. It's a unique grenade that really just gives you additional healing to shields as well. Go with any transfusion grenades. I'm using Malawan weapons. This weapon simply just shoots really quick and does a high amount of elemental damage. Nothing special to it, really. I'll do a review on all of these weapons at some point in time. The Brainstormer is probably one of the best shotguns in the game. When you shoot it, it chains shock to all the enemies in the area, and it does a good amount of damage. However, I hardly ever use it. The Cutsman is a random world drop. If you can get it, it's probably one of the best weapons. You can see this one's doing 3,800 corrosive damage. It does not run you through ammo either, and it shoots tripwires of doom that just screw everybody up. And then this assault rifle, I almost never use it. If you get the Cutsman, use it. Don't get rid of it. You can get the Cutsman and shock, corrosive, and fire. I'm not sure about radiation or ice, but they're all amazing. And that's all the tools you need to destroy everything. This build's crazy. Make sure you try it out. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you tweak it, let me know as well. I want to see if there's anything I could do to improve on it. If you like the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I should be doing more guides like this now that we have all the characters unlocked. There'll be plenty of content, so make sure you're there. Peace out, guys. You have a good one.